You are listening to the Nature's Premier Podcast, Episode 7. Here on the Nature's Premier Podcast, we talk about everything from bees to babies and sustainable living. Join us while we talk about natural parenting and different ways to live a more sustainable lifestyle for ourselves and our future generations to come. Now let's begin. Welcome back to the Nature's Premier Podcast. I am your host, Brooke Nichols, and I am so excited to be here with you all today. On today's episode, we are going to chat with Nicole Lahey. She is a very popular birth doula and birth photographer located in Nassau County, Long Island. Nicole is a busy mother to 3 young children and an angel baby, and works with many new mothers who are looking for more support in their pregnancy and their birthing journey. Having a doula is like having a coach, and we highly recommend listening to this episode if you have any questions on how to get started, you want to know exactly what a doula does, and some insight on what to ask a doula when you are interviewing them. Please check out Nicole at readysetchaos.com and her popular Instagram handle at ready.set.chaos. Nicole, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us. Well, me.
Yeah, no problem. Well, okay, so pretty much I just wanted to start about what exactly is a doula? What does a doula do? A lot of our families, they think a doula is somehow like similar to like a midwife. So if you can just jumpstart this interview with just letting us know what like a doula is and how a doula really can help your birth experience.
Sure. So traditionally, the word doula actually means women's servant. And so what a modern day doula does is we're a person who's trained to assist you through birth, through your pregnancy. We help you with education during your whole pregnancy. We talk about everything that could possibly happen. Sometimes I'm tasked with helping people find a provider like a midwife or an OB/GYN who's a good fit for them. I do tons of stuff, but when it comes down to it, the meaning of a doula is a birth support person, someone who's been there, done that, who knows exactly what you're going through. We touch on all aspects of the laboring mother. So physical, I help with positioning ideas, touch, counter pressure, breathing, things like that. Emotional, I help create like a safe birth space and a good vibe for the mother. And I also really help with partner support. So a lot of people are unsure of having an extra person in the room, and they really want their partner to play a big role. And so what I do is I help the partner be the best help to the birthing mother. I'm full of resources and education, and I help my clients from, the day that they come to me with their pregnancy test in hand till even after they give birth. There are such things as a postpartum doula, and what they do is different. I'm strictly just a birth doula, so I take care of the woman from pregnancy to birth and then hand them off to somebody else. But the difference between a doula and a midwife is medically trained. They act sort of like the OB. They're going to be delivering your baby. If you need medications or if anything happens medically to you or your child, that's what they're there for. I'm more of physical and emotional support during your birth and your labor, and I help you with your birth plan, and I help you carry out your birth plan. I don't work for a hospital. I don't work for a midwife. I work directly for my client who's hiring me, and I have their best interest at heart. There's no other, I'm not protecting the best interest of a hospital or anything like that. It's just me and my client. And I'm also a professional birth photographer. So I kind of couple the two. They go hand in hand for me. And I just love birth so much, and I love photography. So I've sort of meshed the two of those together. But that's a little bit about what I do.
Okay, interesting. So like, I actually read an article a couple weeks ago, and I should have wrote it down. But pretty much what I read is that a lot of families. Do you work with any women that are having like VBACs or attempting to have VBACs? Because I have seen that a big trend is women who have had cesarean births are looking for a more like natural approach. And I feel like it's very doula heavy with a lot of VBACs. Have you worked with any women that are experiencing that or looking to pull away from modern like hospitals and just like the modern practices?
Absolutely. So, yeah, VBACs are a very big thing. Like my VBAC clients, the couple that I have coming up and the couple that I've doulaed for, they actually didn't have a doula the first time. And I guess they got caught up in the moment, or they didn't necessarily know what to expect, as most women don't know what to expect if they've never attended a birth before. And you never really know until you experience it yourself. So they kind of got caught up in the moment and, with the fears of the hospital or their doctor, or, maybe they didn't understand some of the interventions that they'd consented to, and it sort of led them down a path of intervention after intervention. So they didn't have somebody that they could ask questions to. They didn't have full-on informed consent. They weren't necessarily prepared. So, yeah, I do get a lot of VBAC clients, and they're so much, just so empowered. Like, they come with tons of information, and they're ready to like take back their next birth. And it's really cool to be able to be there with women who are going through that experience, because they want that vaginal birth so badly, and they're just totally empowered. And it's really wonderful to work alongside with somebody who's extremely knowledgeable and in control of their own body.
Yes, definitely. And we work with, as you know, like we run Nature's Premier Diaper Service, and we work with a lot of families, and, we get asked a lot of random questions that really don't have to do with like diapering, and a lot of them, have to do with, how do you find a midwife, or, like how do you find a doula? Now, do you work with, like, how do people like hire you? Like, how would you, like, who do you recommend to look for a doula? Is there like a specific parent that is looking for a different birth experience, or is it just anyone? Like, what kind of client or new parent do you find tends to look for a doula, and like what are some tips that they could use to find one that works for them, that's in their area, that kind of stuff?
So it's actually a very wide range of people that come to me and the different things that I hear, because the role of a doula is being so widely recognized now, and they're doing all these studies, and like I have some numbers in front of me actually. Like, they say that when a doula is present, there's been like 26% less C-sections, 41% less vacuum assisted births, so 28% less use of pain meds. So because of all this, it's becoming a lot more mainstream. So I'll have somebody just come to me and say, hey, my doctor mentioned I might want to get a doula. And of course, any doctor who mentions a doula is a pretty good doctor, because they're not hiding anything. So sometimes a doctor will mention a doula, or their sister-in-law had a doula, or some people will just actually have followed me on Instagram, and they'll see that I'm a doula and be like, hey, can I hire you? I didn't know what they were before, but now I do, and I totally need you. So people come from all different avenues, whether it was their first experience or they've had a previous bad experience for whatever reason. People come looking for doulas for a wide variety of reasons, and I welcome everybody to have a doula, because I didn't have a doula for my first birth experience, and I definitely feel that had I had a doula, my daughter wouldn't have been in a NICU, and it wouldn't have been so traumatic to me. And so after that experience is when I went on to have 2 home births that were both attended by doulas and a birth photographer. So for me, it was coming off of a bad experience that, sent me in a different direction. But for some people, they're just, someone in their family or their friend, or they're doing some research in natural parenting groups or any type of parenting group, and they come across the word and they look into it, and they're kind of like, oh, you know what, that sounds nice. It sounds really nice to have somebody who knows what every little thing is that's going to happen, and that can really provide me with informed consent and really support me during my labor and birth experience and pregnancy. So yeah, we get everybody looking for doulas.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I have a friend of mine who used a doula a couple of years ago before, like, people really, there's been doulas for a while, but I mean, before it kind of like started picking up on more mainstream channels. And she said it was like having that extra support meant everything to her. Her doula helped her write out a birth plan. She couldn't follow it 100%. Some things change in labor and whatnot, but she was really happy, and she felt like having a doula because, like you, she had an issue with her oldest child was also in the NICU actually for almost 4 months, and the baby was premature, and it just seemed to be like every single problem every couple of days, and she felt like she didn't have a lot of support. Her husband was out of the country, and it was just a very traumatic experience for her. And with the birth of her second child, when she had a daughter, she felt that having a doula there was like night and day. She felt like she had so much support. She really had like someone there that was like rooting for her, that was a cheerleader, and again, helped her write her birth plan, helped her follow her birth plan, was just really there for her. And she said, her and her doula are very close now. So I'm a big
relationship continues.
Yes. Yeah, and she sends her pictures. I actually met her for the first time at my friend's daughter's first birthday party. So I think it's really nice, like, when you see that dynamic, especially since it's like a sense of community, and it seems to be picking up steam. Now, I know, Nicole, that you said you service, throughout Long Island and through New York City. Now, let's say if we have some listeners that are across the country, some of our families, they move and whatnot. If they're looking for, like a doula in their area, is there something that they should look for? Are there certain questions they should ask to find a doula that works for them? Like, that would be a best match?
Absolutely. I think that if you can't do a face-to-face interview with your doula, you should definitely do a Skype interview. What I usually first do is I meet with the mother alone, the birth mother, and then we meet the partner later on, because sometimes there are some concerns that the birth mother may have that the partner's not in line with. So first I meet with the birth mother and we talk about everything. I tend to get more clients who run the more natural route, just because I know that I can help somebody with pain management. And I just feel that, if you have the less interventions, the easier the birth is on the mother. So I usually try and take people who are a little more on the natural route. However, as a birth photographer and a doula, I also do take C-section clients. In the hospitals around here, a lot of the doctors now are a lot more on board with allowing a second support person in the OR and birth photography. So even in a C-section, the partner will go over to the baby once the baby's born, and the mother's kind of just like left laying there alone. And so I help with meditation and breathing techniques to get her through, the last 20 minutes of her cesarean section. So I think when you're interviewing your doula, you just want to get a vibe for how they are. Everybody has a different personality. Some people are very laid back and some people are excitable. So usually if it's my client's second birth, I usually ask about how their first experience was and kind of what their hopes are for their next experience. We get to know each other and we kind of go over a couple of the main interventions and stuff like that.
Okay, great. Okay, that's really interesting. Okay, so what are some things as a doula that you discuss with the new parents? What are some new parenting topics that you discuss with them, or questions that are asked?
Absolutely. So one of the main things that we usually talk about is breastfeeding versus formula feeding. So I encourage breastfeeding. I encourage and I explain the importance of immediate skin to skin once the baby's born. I will also provide some literature on delayed cord clamping and why that's important for the baby. We discuss the risks of everything from circumcision to even just getting some pain medications during labor. I explain to my clients that the unhindered birthing body is very good at what it does. And so anytime you put something in the system, it can slow everything down and sort of bog down your system. And you know, your body really does know what to do in most cases. I help answer any questions if they come about breastfeeding, cloth diapering, baby wearing, prenatal nutrition, all of the tests. We go over all of the prenatal tests that happen. You know, whether you're delivering through an OB's office or a midwife. So we talk about everything. We talk about what to expect when you get to the hospital, what types of questions the nurses are going to ask you. We talk about what is a HEP lock. So I really, really prepare my clients in the 9 months or it could be less depending on when we get to know each other. But I really help my clients get a feel for how it's going to work so that there's no questions for them, and they get it and they feel confident and they understand what's happening. And we go over their birth plan, and I get a copy of that, and I keep a couple of copies to give out to people, and I just have that with me to make sure that as best as I can, my clients' wishes are respected, and you know that nothing gets overlooked. Many doulas also offer placenta services, like encapsulation. I personally offer raw preparation for my home birth clients only because it's hard for me to do in a hospital. But some people do offer that service. And yeah, I think
that's very interesting. That's very helpful. And I think what people don't realize too, and this is something that I actually didn't realize until recently, the more and more of my friends that use a doula, I'm thinking like that would have really helped me, because when you have a baby, I had my youngest daughter, I had a very traumatic birth, and I had what a lot of people don't talk about too is, postpartum. I had very bad postpartum with her, and during a couple hours after the birth and things like that, things get hazy, and I feel like also having a doula, it's kind of like you're having someone there that's like like a cheerleader for you, that's there for you, that's giving you advice, especially leading up to it. I feel like if I had someone there, my midwife was great, but I feel like a doula just might be like more of like an intimate relationship that really could help you, walk you through certain things, even gearing up for certain things, because as parents, we know sometimes things, can totally go astray, totally go out the window, plans, things like that. So I think it's great to have someone there that could keep you grounded. And that's also great that you review all of these things that some people probably wouldn't even think to ask. Like I didn't really know too much about, the placenta encapsulation and everything until I was really going through like my postpartum journey and learning about how, certain after postpartum care would have really helped me and benefited me. It's very interesting. It's a very like complex subject, and a lot of people think they could just like Google certain things and, come up with it. But when you're working with someone that works with children, that's there to help you and answer any questions that you have, I think it's a great relationship to form. Now, for doulas, like when do you, like, let's say, okay, I'm pregnant, I'm 6 weeks pregnant, what time would you like recommend to hire a doula? Would you wait till the second trimester? Like, is there a perfect time, or earlier the better?
No, definitely the earlier the better. Because birth is a spontaneous occurrence in most cases. We go on call for you. We don't go anywhere. We're home. We're in the vicinity of where you're giving birth, and we don't go anywhere. We really can't. So a lot of doulas book quickly. And so you should definitely call and start researching a doula if you don't already know one right away. And you should definitely nail down your doula before you're done with your first trimester. Like I said, they book up, and you don't want to end up missing your opportunity to work with somebody that you really, really like. So definitely call as soon as you can to get your doula.
Now, when you, let's say if I was on the hunt for like a midwife, now, do the doula and the midwife work together at all? Or are they just like, they just cross each other when you guys are in the same room or during labor? Like, is it, like, what's your advice on introducing like a doctor or a midwife to your doula?
So, a lot of the midwives here on the island, like there's only a couple. So usually the doulas who've been around for a while have definitely met and worked with pretty much all of the midwives who are around. There's no need for us to really meet beforehand, although we definitely can. We have a great respect for each other, and we stay in our lane. The midwife handles all of the medical stuff, and I take care of basically the mother and her needs. You're not going to ask your midwife to go get you a glass of water, so those are some of the things that I do while she would be checking your blood pressure, those types of things. So, I always have straws in my bag because I'm constantly having, my mom's drink water. So, like I said, you're not going to ask your midwife to go get you water. Like, we each stay in our lane. So, like I said, there's a great respect for each of us. And as long as we stay in our roles, we have no problems working together.
Okay, cool. All right. So, so like the relationships, they're different, but they kind of complement each other because, you're both just working for the aid of the mother pretty much.
Absolutely.
Now, do you find for those, what if those parents are like kind of in between being like super crunchy and like, more, like mainstream parenting, if they're using a doctor, but they're dead set on getting a doula? Like, is there any advice you would give them on something like that? Do you find that the two mesh together? Like, can someone use a doula and have a doctor?
Absolutely. Totally. There's some really, really, really fantastic OBs here on the island that support, natural birth and just the natural lifestyle in general, and are very supportive of doulas. So if you have an OB and you say, hey, I hired a doula, and they're like, absolutely not, that's a huge red flag. If your doctor is scared or nervous or disapproving of you having a doula in the room, go find another doctor, because that's a huge red flag. Most doctors are not like that, and they're welcoming. Think about it this way. If you're having a hospital-based birth, which would be the case if you have an OBGYN taking care of you, you're going to go into labor, and you're going to call the main line to their office, and you're going to then go to the hospital. You're not even going to reach your doctor. When you get to the hospital, you meet the nurses, and the nurses and the on-call doctor will be taking care of you initially. Your doctor is not going to show up usually until the very end of your labor as you start to progress. So there's going to be people you've never met before, you don't know, they don't know you, they don't know your wishes, they don't know your birth plan, and they're also taking care of 10 other patients. So that's also why it's great to have a doula for a hospital birth, because you have somebody who knows you, who can advocate for you, who, while you can't speak through your contraction because you're in so much pain, can help answer the questions that the medical staff needs to know, as well as your partner. So, I think that it's actually even more so important to have a doula when you plan to give birth in a hospital, because there's going to be so many unfamiliar faces in the beginning of your labor, and neither of them are going to stay in the room with you. So there's a lot of change that happens within a hospital that doesn't happen at home, because when you give birth at home or a birth center, usually your midwife is there pretty much from the beginning, but not so much if you're delivering through an OB practice.
Okay. And like for a doula, like let's say I'm going into labor right now, like would I just contact you and you meet me at the hospital? Okay.
So if I'm going to know everything. You're going to text me about your appointment that you had as you're leaving, and I really stay up on your care and what's going on with you. So let's say you had contractions for the last 10 minutes. Definitely tell me about them. And then as things progress or they get intense, it's really, listen, I work for the birthing mother. So if she feels that she needs me and she wants me there right away, I will drop what I'm doing and I'll be there for you. Some people choose to wait to call. Well, I'll know they're in labor, but they'll be like, I'm not ready to have you here yet. Some people take the early stages of labor to really connect with their partner in private, or just to take a shower alone. And so it's really up to how the birthing mother is feeling. However, I need to be kept in the loop right away so that I can get to you as fast as possible when the time comes.
Okay. Okay, no, that makes total sense, and yeah, it's like you literally have like a jockey, like you have someone that's there for you, that's there to root you on. That's that's great. And how long do you typically stay with the new mother after delivery? I know you said you were a birth doula, so is there like a certain time frame? Like how does that work?
Well, as both a birth doula and a photographer, I don't know if I would stay longer as one or the other, but I'm usually there for about 2 hours as long as mom and baby are okay. I help with the first couple of latches, and we talk about breastfeeding, and I just show the mom a couple of times how to nurse. Some of the nurses in the hospital are good at this and some aren't, and although breastfeeding is one of the most natural things that we do as human beings, it's also difficult to do if you've never done it before. And there are so many things that could go wrong. So I help my clients with breastfeeding. I help them do whatever, comes up in the next couple of hours. But usually at a couple of the hospitals I work with, and especially at home birth, they do an hour at least of uninterrupted skin to skin. So during that time, I'll be taking pictures, helping the mom breastfeed, and just going over any newborn care questions that they may have or that may come up.
Okay, all right, yeah, very interesting. So, okay, so I'm a new mom and I'm super excited using a doula, but my husband's like kind of skeptical. So, like, do you work with situations like that where you have one partner that's eager and another partner that's more of like a skeptic?
Absolutely, it happens more often than you think. So usually, what I do is I just kind of I empower the mother to know that this is her birth experience. She needs to have this baby come out safely, and she needs to be safe, and so does the baby. And the birthing mother needs to do what she thinks she needs to do in order to have that happen. I'm extremely respectful of partners, and it's funny because after the fact, I had one dad who was a little bit resistant, and he wrote me one of the most shining reviews I've ever read about a person to begin with, to ever. And what he said was, I don't know how I could have gone through this experience without Nicole. She made it so much more enjoyable. And that's the truth. What I do is I take care of all the hard stuff. The partner doesn't have to worry about the birth plan or making sure that she stays hydrated. He doesn't need to, or she doesn't need to know or remember all those things. That's my job. So what they can do is they can connect more with the birth mother. They can relax a little bit. They can look at me and, I'll give them a wink to know that everything is okay. And so I take the pressure off of the birth partner, and a lot of partners really, really enjoy that. I also show them physical techniques that they can do to the birthing woman so that they're more involved. And actually, I encourage involvement. There's so many things to do, and there's so many ways to help when somebody's in labor. So there's really never enough hands. So it's great. Like, there's enough roles for me to play and the partner to play. So nobody feels like they're just sort of sitting there doing nothing. And when I have partners who are kind of like, oh, I don't know about this, I actually let them read some of the other reviews that I've gotten, and it usually changes their mind. So yeah, I'm very partner friendly. And in the end, after the birthing mother explains to their partner why it's important to have a doula and that they truly feel that they need this in order to have a successful birth experience, most of the time partners are totally like, okay, no problem, we'll do this. So.
No, that's great. Yeah, and it's sometimes people are if it's the first time they're hearing of something and like, oh, what is this, like my wife's crazy idea? Sometimes they don't know, like, where to go with it, but that's usually what you find if you're a little skeptical at first, especially like in the natural parenting movement. Like for example, like my husband, he was always a skeptic of like long-term breastfeeding, so like extended breastfeeding, and it's funny because as the more children I have 3 daughters. My youngest she's actually she just turned 3 and we just stopped nursing, but he said, he's like, you should have nursed the other 2 girls till 3. It's funny how, like, when you first start something, and then he's like, oh, just 6 months. And it's like, but where are you getting that from? That's just what you think,
That's Absolutely. It's funny that you say that because a lot of the times I'll have partners ask me those types of questions. They'll say, she's still breastfeeding our oldest child, or, how long should she breastfeed for? And then, we get to know each other and they feel comfortable with me, and partners they usually feel free to ask me whatever's on their mind, and we talk about it and they make them feel really comfortable. I also want to know, there was one time in my career where I was hired as a birth photographer, and it was a stressful situation. The mother was delivering twins in a hospital, and so after the first baby was born vaginally, the second baby needed to be born via an emergency cesarean, and although was only hired as a birth photographer, I not only helped her in the beginning through her labor because, I could see she needed me, but during that time, the husband was alone and so worried about his wife, and we sat there together and I just held space for him, and he came back and had the most wonderful things to say. And, just being there, people don't realize it's nice to have a familiar face, around during this time. Anything can happen in birth. And so to have somebody with you who knows you and who really has your best interests at heart is so comforting. So I actually really connect often with a partner on a level of, like, I would say a teammate. So it's cool to be able to do that.
No, that's great. No, that's fantastic. And it's almost like a sense of community. I think we touched on this a little bit in our conversation, talking about like a doula, just, being there for you, being there as far, I think you mentioned something about when family is like their extended family is not around, or if the mother's alone. Like, can you touch a little bit about that?
Of course. Like, women have been giving birth forever, obviously. And usually, back long ago, it was just your friends and your family and your neighbors that helped you through birth and beyond in the beginning months. And in some cultures, women actually will leave their partners and go give birth somewhere where they call it like a birthing village, and they stay there and they're taken care of by the elder women in the community. And after birth, they stay there for a few months, and then they're returned back to their family. But so knowledge and information was usually passed down that way. And a lot here, especially in the United States, a lot of people don't live around their family or their friends that they grew up with or elders in their family. They're kind of transplanted and have gone to a different part of the country, and they don't really know anyone. And they don't have people to ask these questions to. And, it's funny because we've gotten so far away from traditional childbirth and how things were many, many, many years ago. And, I'm talking about the generation in which you and I were born into. My mom did things very differently from how I do them now. And so if I didn't have somebody or this community of naturally minded people to bounce ideas off of, it'd sort of be stuck in doing the things that might, that are kind of frowned upon today. So it's really good to have knowledgeable people around you who can help you and who can guide you. And a doula really provides that sense of community that is sort of getting lost in, today's age, especially with all the technology and, like I said, people moving across the country. So it's really good to have somebody that supports you basically from the beginning of your pregnancy and then even thereafter. I don't know how professional this is, but I usually become very good friends with my clients afterwards just because we feel so connected to each other after going through that experience. And usually I get asked breastfeeding questions or a lot about intact care for baby boys, and I'm always there to help for that. So, doula is really the new sense of community for a lot of families.
Yeah, no, and that's amazing. And that really is something to take from this interview. It's like, it's a sense of like a human relationship because, we have Skype, we have FaceTime, we have so many different like technology, ways to like keep in touch with family and loved ones that live across, the world, to live across the country. But there's one thing to have like a human interaction, to have someone there, to have that energy flowing between the two of you, like, positive vibes and things like that. Not to sound like, pseudoscience or whatever, but when you have someone like in the room with you, helping you, when you have that bond, it's really important. And it's funny that you say about the professional aspect, because, we work with over 300 families, but there are definitely families that I still talk to that their kids are like, in second grade and they're clearly out of diapers, but we still have that relationship because there's like a human relationship. And I don't think there's anything wrong with developing friendships and things like that, especially being a doula. Like, I can only imagine how close you get to a family. And I think it's great that they have someone to call on, especially with, the more children they have and things like that. I mean, I'm sure it only gets easier and almost like you're working with a sister at that point,
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing you said about families, like a lot of questions I get from, a lot of the time I get this specific question from my home birth families is, can my 2-year-old or 3-year-old attend? And it's so funny. I love that question, and I know that every parent knows their child best, but of course, why not? Birth is such a natural process, and my older 2 children got to see their younger siblings born, so that was really cool, and they talk about it still to this day, and we watch birth videos together, and they cry over them, and they ask me if they can come to births with me, and they just, I believe, have a greater respect for, themselves and just human life in general because they've witnessed that. So I love encouraging, if the parent knows that the child can handle it and they prepare them properly. I love when siblings attend births, and I help ease that transition as well for the children. And if there are children in the family, I do get to know them in the couple of visits we have before the mom goes into labor. So yeah, it's a huge sense of community, and I love forming these relationships with women who are going through this because I love birth so much. This is not only a profession of mine, but it's absolutely 100% a hobby as well.
Yeah, no, it's a miracle, really, and there's just like a deep respect, especially when you see everything happening in the world, and it's like at least there's still beauty in something, and the miracle of birth, and there's still miracles, and it's amazing. And I have to say, Nicole, I have read some of the reviews that you have gotten with some families that you have worked with, and they are just like they're so passionate. They're so positive, and for anyone listening to this that is looking for a doula, I'm just going to give like a shameless shout out to Nicole. I mean, really, like she is amazing. And even when I was pregnant with my youngest, and I don't know if you remember, Nicole, you sent me your birth video. It was awesome. I mean, it was like so amazing. It was so inspiring. And anyone that's in Long Island that's looking for a doula, and you said you work with families up through Manhattan as well, right?
Yeah, I do Manhattan, Queens, and Brooklyn, and if I am caught early enough, I would travel even, further than that. So just email me and we can talk.
Yes, and Nicole, she has 3 young children and an angel baby as well. So it's like, you're busy and there's a lot going on. So definitely, like you said before, if someone's interested to reach out, the earlier the better. And Nicole, we could find you, our families can find you at readysetchaos.com, right? If they're interested in, finding out more about a doula. You said there was a tab on your website for doula services?
Yeah, it's the birth services tab, and then my email address is under there. It's readysetchaosbrand@gmail.com. So you can find that all on the website.
Okay, great. And your Instagram handle, guys, do please check her out. She posts gorgeous photos of her beautiful kids, and also you have a doula handle, not a doula handle, an Instagram handle for your doula account, the.doula.tog, you said?
Yep. Okay,
and your Instagram handle for your main Instagram page is ready.set.chaos, correct?
Yes.
Okay, very cool. All right, sounds good. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. We definitely want to have you on again because there was a couple of topics that you touched on, such as, the having your babies in a room with, the whole huge benefit of that, sibling births and things like that. I mean, we totally have to talk about more. So I would definitely love you on the show again in the future.
Well, I would love to come back. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem, Nicole. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your night.
You too.
Thanks. That wraps up our interview with Nicole Lahey, who is a birth photographer and birth doula. Please do check her out again at readysetchaos.com. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, please make sure to rate and subscribe to the podcast. It really does help boost our numbers and visibility to more people who can use this information. We are a more of a unique type of podcast. We talk about a variety of topics such as babies, environment, vegetarianism, human rights, everything. So it really is an important podcast to share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. We definitely appreciate it. And we will check you guys back again next week. Take care, friends.